as we see a rapid decline in brand advertising.
But these are all features, and they're all at the expense of refactors.
Yeah. No, they are.
Okay.
But
well, thank you for acknowledging that.
I think we won't get to the refactor if we don't make these changes.
Why?
Because we just be bankrupt.
What's the runway?
Could I jump in with a quick question to cut the runway silence there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I feel like Elon, you're our philosopher king. Plato would be very proud of you. You're extremely technically competent, and you I think really understand how to drive things in a good direction. But I really love how you're also leaning into the voice of the people and letting them have a say as well. But you can't have a million backseat drivers. So I guess my question to you is how do you integrate the voice of the people when there are a lot of people that just don't have the right information to make decisions? And how do you create the right governance systems to really find the signal from all of the noise to get, Twitter to become something more like a republic rather than a dictatorship? Curious what you think.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the relatively near term, like these things are all kind of moot if Twitter is ogling into the ground financially. So I was thinking about the runway question, like just to sort of give people some perspective here. Twitter was tracking to spend about $5 billion next year.
We needed the trip to Disneyland.
Yeah, exactly. Then because of the nature of this transaction, where there's $12.5 billion of debt and the Fed rate has been going crazy, there's on the order of $1.5 billion-ish of debt servicing that's required. So we're talking about like net cash outflow if you didn't make any changes of on the order of like $6.5 billion next year, with revenue probably tracking to $3 billion. So that's like a negative cash flow situation of $3 billion a year. Not good. Since Twitter has $1 billion in cash. So that's why I spent the last 5 weeks cutting costs like crazy.
I think we also got to get the advertisers.
Yeah. We do need to get the advertisers. But like I said, I've spoken to a number of the advertisers. Their requests are not fuzzy or irrational or anything. They're like quite reasonable. They're like, just show us an ROI that makes sense. And I'm like, yes, I agree. If I were in their position, I would also want an ROI that makes sense, especially when headed into difficult economic times, where these questions are asked a lot more than in prosperous times. In prosperous times, there is plenty of budget for advertising, and you can get away with unclear ROI. But when times are tough, then the hard questions of return on investment are asked. And when you do not have a clear answer, then advertisers don't want to advertise because they're being sane. That's the main issue. So this is important. So now, with the changes that we're making here on massively reducing the burn rate and building subscriber revenue, I now think that Twitter will in fact be okay next year. I think we will be about hopefully sort of roughly cash flow break even. That's what I expect for next year. But this will be difficult. But I think that's where what will happen is roughly cash flow break even, as opposed to minus $3 billion ish on with $1 billion of cash, which would be therefore dead. So that's the reason for my actions. They may seem sometimes spurious or odd or whatever. It's because this is not. We have an emergency fire drill in our hands. That's the reason. Not because I am like naturally capricious, or at least aspirationally, I'm not naturally capricious. But if you sort of, if you say you're looking at it from my standpoint and you're saying, okay, wow, this company is like basically you're in a plane that is headed towards the ground at high speed, with the engines on fire and the controls don't work.
I use the same analogy at comma. Can we afford good food?
Yeah. Well,
it's really important to me.
No, I think we can afford good food. The madness of for example, the headquarters food budget was that it was $13 million a year of fixed rate, no matter how many people showed up. So if the normal meal price would have been, if the building was fully occupied, $20 for actually quite a good lunch. The food was good. But if you drop to 5% occupancy, you've now multiplied the effective meal cost by 20, and that's where you get a $400 lunch, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. The food was great. I loved the chia seed pudding and the smoothies in the morning. But yeah, you got to tell everyone to come into the office. It's crazy to me that people think they can have a job where they don't show up to an office.
Right, and like it seems like a logical thing if you have a building where there's literally 5% occupancy, that you would seek to renegotiate the food budget and not have it be 20 times more than it should be. But that was literally the case. So
the food's a lot worse now than it was. A lot worse.
Yeah, well, we can definitely improve that. So that's not like I think some impossible thing to overcome. So
but no, I think
terrible food. This is not it's not going to break the bank. The issue is more you can't pay like $13 million a year for a mostly empty building for lunch, and not even including dinner. So
I could save $13 million by switching ads prediction from TF serving to Onyx runtime alone.
Yeah, I'm saying we can totally have a good lunch.
All right.
We're not in like lunch purgatory for the rest of the time. We may have gone too far, is what I'm saying. I admit we may have gone too far in cost cutting.
Love.
With respect to the lunch, that could be the case. And so we'll have to sort of, we may have overcorrected in that regard, and we can fix it. This is not an insurmountable problem. Yeah.
Well, so I'm like, refactors, food. How about free speech?
Well, I mean, free speech, let me tell you that if somebody's got to pay the servers, okay? So the speech has got to cost at least $8. Because otherwise, how do we pay the friggin' server bill? There's like $1.5 billion-ish, of all-in server-related costs. We're trying to get that lower, but it's a lot. It's like not trivial. And a minimum, somebody's got to pay the bills. Advertising for sure, but there's some degree of subscriptions. And then on the speech front, like my general philosophy on that is that we should hew close to the law in any given country. Yeah.
Elon, that makes me so happy if that's actually what the policy is. I'm upset when I see Paul Graham get banned for mentioning Mastodon.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Okay. mean, yeah, I think there's a far cry. Look, you can make arguments for Kanye West, you can make arguments for Elon Jet, but you can't make an argument for Paul Graham.
No, I agree. That was a mistake.
Okay. Can people post Mastodon now?
Yeah, fucking post Mastodon all goddamn day long. I don't care.
Yeah, because we're going to build something way better than Mastodon, right? Like, come on, how hard could it be to beat these people?
From an evolutionary standpoint, how'd that work out for the Mastodons?
I don't know what a Mastodon was.
I still feel like there's something to be said about like open source projects. So like you have Linux that outcompeted Windows. You like big networks of like armies of volunteers can maintain pretty complex things. Like sure, maybe Linux is run a little bit like a monarchy, like George said earlier in the space, but I do think that there's something to be said about open source software in general, and it's like anti-fragility.
I mean, Linux is absolutely run like a monarchy, but Linux is not Twitter. Linux has a large code base because it needs to support many different device drivers and many different devices. Twitter needs to support basic core functionality, and I think open sourcing it, there's no value in the code, right? The operating system has value in the code. The value of Twitter is in the network.
I suppose, but there's still like, composability arguments, right? Like you guys could reuse and other people could build on top of.
If Twitter was open source tomorrow, what would you build?
I don't know.
Honestly, I think we should just post the source somewhere. Frankly,
that would be sick.
Elon, no one would ever get it to run.
Well, I mean, listen. That would just, I think, finally explain
do it.
That is explained with words, because you can just look at it.
Dump a tarball Twitter source. It's unbelievable.
So I have two ideas
I think I would use. Just post it all 20 million lines of Scala, and you can just watch and read to your heart's content. Because wow.
I think it's actually more. I think those are just the used lines.
Round numbers,
Yep.
We'll take 1 million.
Yeah. Well, that's just Scala. We have a lot of Python as well.
Yeah.
But actually,
there's a lot of
most open source code quality is like really poor. And on Linux, most of the contributors are paid by like Intel and other big firms. So it's not really a fair comparison at all.
Yeah, sure, but you still have like composability though, right? Like a lot of people can build on top of what they're building, and then that makes like I don't know.
I mean, that's absolutely true, but who's gonna sponsor it? And no one's gonna sponsor open source engineers unless.
Composability is not inherent to open source. Composability is a thing that takes a lot of effort and money and time as well. Like there's a lot of code bases that are open source that aren't composable at all. The theoretical potential is there, but it's not like a thing almost always.
No one is going to volunteer to your open source project to come in and do meaningful refactors that reduce the code. They're going to write a feature, be like, please merge it so I don't have to maintain it, and then
yeah, that sounds about right.
Still though,
I have a quick idea, Elon. Is there any way to like gamify getting more people to use Twitter? Because I think a lot of people hear about Twitter in the news. They don't really understand how to use it or get the app and use it. But maybe if there's a way to encourage other people to show people how to use it, it could help get more daily active users eventually.
Yeah. Well, so daily active users have been growing reasonably well, especially if you count real users and not like bots and trolls. So. I mean, like one of the super crazy things that I discovered, I only discovered this like basically about 10 days ago, was that Twitter was being scammed to the tune of $60 million a year for SMS texts, not counting North America. So I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? Like there's $60 million of SMS texts? Yeah, Twitter is paying telcos. Basically, there are telcos who are not being super honest out there in other parts of the world, who were basically gaming the system and running like two-factor authentication SMS texts over and over again and just creating a zillion bot accounts to literally run up the tab so that Twitter would SMS text them and Twitter would just pay them millions of dollars without even asking about it. And now this created some problems because I said, well, we got to stop that. And I said, like, cut off any telco that's got fraud above 10%. Now that did cause some havoc in many parts of the world. And then people were like imputing like bad motives to it. But it was literally, I just said to the team, hey, cut off any telco where the fraud's above 10%. That turned out to be 390 telcos. I'm like, damn, that's high.
Oh my gosh.
Outside of North America, so I'm like, okay, I didn't know there were that many telcos in existence. But it turns out there's some, you get to like the fourth tier telco in Byelorussian and you got some sketchy things going on.
But so now you have people complaining that they can't log into Twitter because their SMS doesn't work.
Yes. And so like now we're going back to the telcos and saying, listen, if you stop scamming us, then we will gladly pay you some amount of money in SMS texts, but you can't turn a blind eye to relentless, bogus SMS texts. So then we're having that conversation with the telcos, and then we can turn them back on and say, listen, you just be reasonable. We'll take 10% of fraud. It's fine. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to take 90% fraud. So we're not going to spend $60 million a year on literally SMS texts outside of North America. So a bunch of those users were just fake. And like literally for the purpose of running up Twitter's tab on SMS texts. Kid you not, this is insane. So now, but to your point of making Twitter easier to use, like the obvious move I think is like if you download the Twitter app or you go to Twitter, it should put you into the search page, and immediately show you like what's trending. So it's like, as opposed to saying, hey, you need to download the app, you need to install the app, you need to give us a username, you need to give us a friggin' phone number, and I'm like making it like an escape room to open a Twitter account. It's like, we're going to give you a bunch of math puzzles basically to open a Twitter account. And then once you're in the Twitter account, you're just sitting there with nothing to do. This is insane. Like it's not clear to me you should actually have a Twitter account at all unless you need to make a write action. It's like unless you need to write something. So if you want to like or retweet or tweet or something like that, okay, at that point, yes, you need an account.
Then why did people put the pop-up back? They said you said they could do it.
Which pop-up?
The pop-up that I emailed you the first week that I wanted to remove. The one that when you scroll on Twitter when you're logged out.
I didn't say we should put okay, that's the miscommunication.
Oh, great. Let's get rid of it again. Right? Because I got rid of it entirely. I got rid of it entirely. They added it back and they messed up adding it back so it wasn't dismissible. And then they fixed that 5 days later. But like they didn't mean to make it non-dismissible and it was non-dismissible. And I'd love to remove it altogether.
Yeah, it's not clear to me why, unless there's some reason that I'm not aware of, we should not be prohibiting just a read-only scroll.
I know. There's no reason except that people are scared to lose quote-unquote MDAO.
Yeah, this optimization of MDAO is like, I think creating a bizarre incentive structure that doesn't make sense.
It's endemic in the organization. They love MDAO.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that actually matters is like true user minutes, not like fake user minutes, but like this, we're confident this is a real user. We're confident this is, this user actually spent time on the app, like as measured by like screen time on the phone, which is since the phone is the primary use case. And then to get like another layer deeper is what we said, the thing to optimize is unregretted user minutes. So I've heard like a lot of people say like, hey, I spent 2 hours on TikTok, but I regret those 2 hours. I'm not saying I don't want to trash TikTok because it's quite compelling to a lot of people, but I do often hear that people regret the amount of time they spent on it. So I think the thing we'd want to optimize for is unregretted true human user minutes. That's the thing to optimize for, not MDAO. And then with respect to advertising, as I said earlier, you want advertising that is as close to content as possible, where it's a product or service that you want when you want it. Then that's actually useful. It's actually at that point becomes indistinguishable from content. So these are the things to aim for. We're going to get rid of this MDOT bullshit.
And we're going to let's get rid of all the pop-ups. Let's get rid of when you click likes and quote tweets. Because fundamentally, what these things are doing is they're lowering total minutes on the website. People see that pop-up and they click the X.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that it is important to sort of have some authentication mechanism so people can't, so you can't just create 100,000, instances of just to create 100,000 virtual machines and just create and have them all behave like users. Although at this point with ChatGPT, you could probably just crush, frankly, because ChatGPT would exceed, I think, yeah.
Oh, it's about to be impossible. CAPTCHA is about to be impossible. I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, but I mean, at least we can try. At least we can make it so it's not trivial to have 100,000 bot accounts, which it currently is.
The best things to do are social proof kind of metrics.
Sure.
Gmail. Remember OG Gmail with the invites?
Just follow the tree. So if the referral basis, and if there's one referral that goes sideways, you just look at that and you cut off that entire referral tree. That's how it at the beginning.
Hey George, can I get 2 questions in or 2 thoughts?
Yeah, what do you got?
So I'm in San Diego on my Starlink right now, so this is pretty awesome.
Cool.
I'm a father of 4, and I have 2 ideas to help boost revenue. So my kids, they're going to be exposed to advertisements no matter what. Could we have a Twitter Nest feature where parents can let their kids have accounts and the parents can control what advertisers their kids see? Because my kids are going to buy Robux or app, they're going to be buying stuff no matter what, and I'd like to choose what they're exposed to.
Refactors first.
I agree with that as a software developer. Then the next thing is there are tweets that I want to boost that are other people's tweets because whether it's a political party or could we see a paper trail of where the money comes from? So going back to what Pablo said, is it Pablo? Yeah, Pablo said earlier, how to see through the noise. I think it's a lot easier to see through the noise when we can see the paper trail of the money that it's influencing the tweets. And I think that's what, as an older user, I was frustrated with the bots. And I'm fine with people paying to get things boosted, but I'd like to see what the source is, where it's coming from. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Twitter certainly needs to enable longer videos. I wasn't clear on what the limitation on the Twitter video length was, but I was recently told that it was a 2 gigabyte file size limitation, at least in the current stack. So, it's difficult to have video monetization if the videos are extremely short. But if you have a better codec than is currently used at Twitter and resolution that is reasonable for a phone, you can have some pretty long videos in 2 gigabytes. But to first approximation, I feel the first order is you need to actually be able to post a sufficiently long video. If you cannot do that, then nothing else matters.
Yeah, I don't think most people have access to that. So when I did that live stream before I joined Twitter, I had to get Media Studio, and I actually got this. My friend was like, "Oh yeah, I know a guy in a Telegram group." And he PayPal'd him $30 and got access to it. So that's what it takes to get access to long video on Twitter today.
Yeah. Well, it's again, I have to a lot of things I should preface by, this is what I think someone told me, as opposed to this is the God's honest truth. So that's an important preface for anything I say. What I say may not be true, or at least it's my recollection of what I think someone told me. So I'll take anything I say with a grain of salt. But anyway, if the 2 gigabyte thing is real, then we can actually have long videos with an improved codec. The current codec, I think, is quite old, and then having a resolution that's manageable on a phone, not super high def, especially if it's something like a podcast where you don't need to like see every detail in high res. Then it's just like basic stuff like having a video ad attached that is at least reasonably relevant to the material. So if it's a video about technology, that the ad is a technology related ad. If it's a video about gardening, it's a gardening related ad. It's sort of stuff that would make sense. Like I said, not splitting the atom. It's pretty basic. And that's what needs to happen on that front.
The main problem that we saw was getting good enough ad inventory for video ad. We found it was a lot harder to build up a large pile of ads to serve a distributed enough group of people, and it took a while for Twitch to even have bucketing of ads for users in the first place. Are you confident in the ability for Twitter to acquire video ad buckets and targets?
No, I think that is a legitimate issue. And actually, if I look at YouTube, because I actually watch YouTube without YouTube Premium, just to kind of see what kind of ads are being served here, and I very often will see sort of nonsense ads that are like quite scammy and irrelevant to the subject. So if YouTube is even having trouble getting ads that are relevant to the subject, then probably Twitter will have some challenges that are significant. But I think part of this is also just like reaching out proactively to companies that do things in a particular arena and say, we have inventory that is relevant. Why don't you try advertising with something that's in this genre and see how it goes. And then, like I said, if you can actually have a logical return on investment for advertisers, I think en masse they will be logical. You might have some irrational actors, but for the most part they will be logical. So but I do think that the ad inventory thing is an important problem. If you only have ads of a particular type, then you're going to have trouble achieving relevancy because you simply lack an ad that is relevant.
It also has to be a diverse enough set within that, because video ads are much more frustrating as a user to have as repeats. So if you see the same video ad 3 times, it's significantly more frustrating than seeing the same suggested tweet 3 times.
I feel like they're so bad everywhere. I feel like I get that all the time. Like when I'm watching, like I have a cheap Hulu account with ads. It's the same ad 3 times. And I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah. Google's the only platform that's really nailed this. Instagram's doing better here because their ad platform is incredible nowadays. Like Meta's been killing it, but the inventory problem for a diverse set of video ads is really tough.
Yeah. Doesn't TikTok build a model per user, and they spend something like 10 kilowatt hour like per year per user?
No, I might have spread some of that misinformation. No, you can read TikTok's paper. You can read it. Monolith. It's pretty normal content recommendation engine stuff. They just like do it well. The paper is published.
Is it actually crazy to do that though?
No, and we're gonna start to see that. I think that eventually you're going to build the infinite jest videotape. Eventually you're going to build content that is so compelling that you'll find people just stare at this stuff for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you can do that as the ML gets better and better and better. But unregretted user minutes, right?
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to aim for. I think it'd be hard to argue okay, we improved unregretted user minutes. That is definitely a good thing and not a bad thing. So anyway, I gotta throw in the towel here, guys. But I do want to sort of leave off saying that there are a lot of people at Twitter doing great work. and it is super appreciated. So this is like, definitely not meant to be like, let's trash Twitter nonstop. It's like, at least aspirationally meant to be self-critical, and to say like, okay, what can we do to make things better? So I just do want to make sure that this does not come across as being unreasonably critical of those who are actually working hard to make Twitter better. With that, good night, guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Elon.
your time.
All right.
Very supportive.
Thanks,
Can't
Elon.
wait to see where Twitter 2.0 goes.
Thanks, Elon.
Hey, George, can I ask you a question about engineer numbers?
Yeah.
Originally, why I joined, I didn't think Elon was going to join.
Well, I mean, Elon joined. So after Elon joins, he's like he's the only one who's allowed to say anything about Twitter. I'm not. Like I can't. I'm not going to reveal how like Twitter stuff works. I signed an NDA.
Exactly. So I'm a software engineer. Similar situation I'm on a project where there's been a lot of turnover and the skeleton crew. I feel like I'm being pulled between like I want to be doing software, but I also have to understand the business better too. And do you think that's like a bad position to be in when you as an engineer you got to start trying to innovate the business? And
let's bring this space back to. I mean, Elon shows up. He'll take any conversation in any direction he wants. But yeah, let's bring this back to the question of the space, which
Back
is
to tech. Oh boy.
Scale, complexity, and number of engineers. No, and look, listen, it's great to have Elon join. It's so nice to. I think Mark Zuckerberg would show up in a space, and Mark Zuckerberg's not even the worst. You think Sundar Pichai would ever come talk informally about Google? This is something right here. This is something I absolutely love about the new Twitter. Like that.
YouTube actually does this, which is really cool. Huge shout out to her.
Wait, YouTube does this? Who?
Yep, the CEO of YouTube. Susan Wojcicki, I believe's her last
Susan
name.
Wojcicki has I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She has like Twitter Spaces where she just casually talks about YouTube.
Not Twitter Spaces, but she hops into the conversation on Twitter in the replies all the time, and she shows up on like really like small people podcasts on people who are known for pushing back on the YouTube platform like regularly. Cool. She's been surprisingly transparent. Like I've been super impressed with the leadership at YouTube.
Then why'd we get rid of dislikes?
Because of the net use of them was harmful enough that they decided it wasn't worth maintaining. It was a long battle internally. She has done multiple interviews where she talks in depth about this with both Marquez Brownlee and with Ludwig.
I appreciate that. I haven't seen these interviews. I haven't looked. I've just complained about dislikes. So, look, I'm a huge fan of transparency, building in public. It's cool to see.
Hey, George, was this space inspired by John Carmack leaving Facebook?
I mean, that's one of the things too, right? Like, this is really not all about Twitter. We can discuss John Carmack leaving Meta. Yeah, I mean, look at what he said, right? Like,
Yeah, something like 5% GPU usage.